Before Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th, many analysts believed that there would be massive cyber attacks. But that didn't really happen. Herb Lin is a fellow in cyber policy and security at the Hoover Institution and senior research scholar at Stanford University. He's also the author of the book, Cyber Threats and Nuclear Weapons. Professor Lin, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So a lot of cyber experts are scratching their heads, wondering why Russia hasn't launched any major cyber attacks, neither against the U.S. nor against Ukraine. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm also one of the people scratching my head about that, but there's a number of possible reasons that we can consider. President Biden's person for emerging technologies and national security, Ann Newberg, gave some indication of that when she pointed out that we've been doing a lot to help harden the Ukrainian infrastructure, cyber infrastructure against attacks. So we've been having people go over there and help them out, and we've been providing lots of information over there and so on. Just generally trying to be very cooperative and supportive in helping them to bolster their defenses. So that's obviously been one important part of what we've been doing. But there's also the possibility of stuff that she wasn't allowed to talk about, so she shouldn't have been talking about. So, for example, it is possible that our cyber offensive forces have been doing things to disrupt the possible Russian cyber attacks against Ukraine as well, much as the U.S. Cyber Command took action against the Internet Research Agency, I think in the 2018 election. So there are a number of possibilities like that. There's also the possibility that the Ukrainian infrastructure is very, very big. I mean, it's a very large state, and we have the possibility that what the Russians were able to do on a small scale, they just aren't able to do on a large scale, and so maybe they don't have the personnel to do it. So there are all sorts of possibilities there, but I think the answer is we really don't know why.
You know, there was a history of Russian cyber attacks against Ukraine in the past. Is it possible that Ukraine just has really good cyber defenses now?
Well, that's part of what we've been trying to do. So the answer is they're certainly better than they were before. There's no question about that. Whether or not that's been enough to resist what you would have expected would be a full onslaught of Russian cyber attacks, that's a different question. I'm personally a little bit skeptical that there could have been enough defensive hardening and so on to make them as invulnerable as they seem to be. I could be wrong about that, but my instinct is that there has to be something else in addition to their defenses.
You know, the Russians are known for launching misinformation campaigns. How have they used that in their war against Ukraine?
Misinformation comes in two forms in this context that we're talking about. There's misinformation that Russia would use against its own people, and that is to give them information that says that the Ukrainians are responsible for the war and that everything is going well for the Russians, and that there are very few Russians being injured, and when they are injured and killed is because of atrocities by the Ukrainians and so on. And I think that part of the information war against the Russian people has actually been relatively successful. So there are stories, for example, about children in Ukraine talking to parents in Russia saying we're under attack by Russia, and their parents saying no, you're not. I mean that's all propaganda. So that part of the information warfare from Russia's standpoint is going well. On the other hand, there's another information warfare campaign that's not going so well, which is for the Russians, which is they wanted to blame the Ukrainians for the war to the rest of the world, and by and large, the rest of the world hasn't fallen for that. Certainly the West is much more unified than it's ever been before against Russian action in Ukraine. And the various narratives that the Russians would have liked the West to have taken up, like this is, it's all Nazis running Ukraine. That just hasn't taken, and so in that sense, the Ukrainians are clearly winning that part of it.
There was also a lot of declassifying of information in the run-up to the war. So and we hadn't really seen that before, as far as American intelligence being just quickly declassified and saying, this is what we know, this is what Putin's gonna try to do.
That's absolutely correct, and in my opinion, that has been a major change from what has happened in the past. So, for example, certainly in 2016, we kept information about what Russians were doing about the election in very close hold. There wasn't a lot of information that was made public. What was made public was made public late in the game, and so on. Now the U.S. intelligence community seems to be willing to talk about things that it wouldn't have talked about before in such a public way so soon. And so I think that has certainly helped to box the Russians in, limit their options, and so on. I mean, if you tell people, they're going to lie about X, and then that makes it much harder to lie about X.